so quickly. I am devastated how quickly it went, but it is the 1st of November today, and that means we're entering cozy season and Christmas. I'm so excited. But let me stop talking and let's get on with the video. Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to a new video. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Amy, and if you're returning, welcome back. So in today's video, if you guys can't tell by the title, I will be doing my October wrap up. I'm actually really excited for this video today because I haven't done a wrap up in such a long time. I don't even know when was the last time I did a wrap up. Let's go check. So the last time I did a wrap up was in August. If you know, I read about 3 books. For me, that is not a lot compared to what I was reading before. But I was in an extreme rut for the past 2 months. I didn't even bother doing a wrap up last month in September because I read one book. One book the whole month because my rut just got worse and worse. But October was the month that I was able to just lift myself up. Like the amount of books I read this month, even I'm shocked, especially physical books. With me, I can read a lot of Kindle books, but physical books I can't. But this month I've had quite a good month of reads and I'm so excited to get into all of them. I've read 19 books and even saying that out loud is like, wow. Hoping that I can bring the same energy into November. November is the start of Varsity cozy season, holiday season. Before we get into this video, make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy this video to get more content as well. Check out my other socials, my Instagram, my Pinterest, also my Goodreads. I will be referring to my Goodreads throughout this video because that's where I keep track of all the books that I've read. Let me stop rambling now and let's get on to the books that I've read this month. The first book that I read in October was the Varsity Dad Dilemma. This is by Lex Martin and this is a college romance, I would kind of say. This book features Gabby and Ryder. Gabby was kind of seeing this guy who is Ryder, but he kind of rejects her, says that he's not for anything serious, but she ends up living opposite to him and basically she ends up helping out with him and his group of fraternity brothers because baby arrives at their doorstep and they don't know whose baby it belongs to, and she's the only one that can actually deal with kids, so she ends up getting involved, helping them, and then when they do a DNA test he finds out that he's basically the father of this baby and she kind of helps him. So throughout the book it's kind of that dilemma where she kind of doesn't really like him, like kind of enemies to lovers kind of trope, because he rejected her, like she was brokenhearted. He rejected her, he thought he wanted something more. He rejected her to go with another girl and stuff like that. But it was really cute seeing him become a dad and that dad figure, seeing how she is with that child as well and like how much she helps him. Really enjoyed this book because it's a nice like small tone romance, but also it's a college romance. Who doesn't love a college romance? So in terms of my ratings, I gave this book a 3 stars. It wasn't bad. Like people always say 3 stars is like you don't like the book. I would say 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's my favourite book, but I enjoy it and I would recommend it to someone. This book, I gave it 3 stars because I enjoyed the storyline, I enjoyed the plot, I kind of knew what they were hinting at in terms of the more depth, but I wish it had more depth to it. Like it was hinting like being more emotional in it, obviously, especially when it delves into her being adopted and stuff like that, and obviously how much he hurt her, but I don't think it went into, but I did really enjoy it. It was really funny, it was really cute, it was really like cozy and fuzzy, and it was really fast paced, which I love, and it is a really good read if you want something that's quick and easy. Next we read Second Down Darling. This is part of the same series by Lex Martin. This one features Charlie and Jake. They're best friends and one night he sleeps with her older sister and she gets pregnant, and Charlie has always fancied Jake but she's never told him about it, and it gets to one point where she can no longer be surrounded by them, seeing them being happy families, seeing the boy that she loves with her older sister, so she decides to move away. A few years later, Jake and Charlie bump into each other and you find out that actually Jake is no longer with her older sister and like the older sister basically abandoned them, and he is very angry at Charlie because obviously she just vanished. She's his best friend and she vanished from his life, not telling him anything, and there was a lot of like reasons behind that. This is kind of a miscommunication trope because there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes of why they weren't able to communicate about their feelings for each other, because it was very obvious that they both had feelings for each other, but this mistake between the sister and him kind of like stop that communication as well. Obviously it was a bit weird because son is Charlie's nephew, which is a bit weird, but like he kind of loves her like a mum, and seeing their relationship and seeing their ending was just so beautiful. So this one I actually gave a 3.5 because I actually enjoyed it a lot more, just because I love the best friends element towards it and like the miscommunication. I don't usually like miscommunication tropes just because it frustrates me a lot, because you guys are clearly meant for each other, but the fact that this thing's getting in the way, it's like, why can't you guys communicate better? There's other ways to communicate with people. But this book, the way they dealt with it was really well, like the way they deal with the miscommunication was really well done. And Lex Martin, she has really good, fast-paced, simple, no cliffhangers, happy ending book. So if you're looking for a perfect cozy romance, I definitely recommend looking at her books and this series. Next, we have a series by Neela Alican. This one is a dark romance kind of storyline. This one is called The Darkest Note, the second one is called The Ruthless Note, the third is called The Broken Note, and then the fourth is called The Forbidden Note. This book follows Candace. Candace is a girl on a scholarship. She gets sent to this high school, and there she meets this group of 4 boys. These boys are known as popular group at the school. They all have wealthy parents. The school she ends up going to, they're all like wealthy children really, part of a band together. So she meets him at first sight. They become enemies to lovers kind of thing. Like he doesn't like her, he's out to get her, kind of like a bully storyline, but I don't think it's as severe as like other books that focus on bullies. It was in a way that you can kind of forgive him, rather than like, in some ways it's like, why would I ever want to be with a guy like that, like ever, like no matter how much he's nice to me afterwards, if he's done stuff like that I wouldn't be with him. In terms of my ratings for the book, The Darkest Note I gave a 3 stars, the first book. The second book I gave it a 4 stars because I felt like the story got a lot more deep and I really enjoyed like the storyline and the turn it took. Third book I gave a 3.5. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it reached that 4-star level. I don't think I like thoroughly enjoyed it compared to the one before. And then the last book I gave a 2.5 stars. I just didn't enjoy it as much. On my Goodreads I gave it 3 stars because you can't give like between scores. I didn't want to give it 2 stars, but other people might find it more interesting than I do. Personally, I don't enjoy that trope, so I didn't really give it a high score because of that. I really recommend it that much. I would say that 3 stars I would recommend to people, but I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. A 5-star I would recommend to anyone regardless of what your tastes are, but 3-star definitely wouldn't really recommend it to certain people. It depends on what your limits are. Like if you're not a dark romance girly, I definitely don't recommend reading this book. It's a fun series to read all in all. I finished the whole series within like 4 days because it was so easy to read. There was a lot going on, but it was a really exciting read and it kept me on the edge of my seat for a long period of time. Next we have Flawless. Flawless is by Elsie Silver. This was another book that I read. This is the first book on my physical TBR that I read, and this book I really enjoyed. This was my first time reading anything from Elsie Silver. It features Rhett and Summer. Rhett is a bull rider and he has a reputation. He has a reputation of being a womanizer, a reputation of kind of just getting his own way, and Summer is employed by her dad, who's his manager, to basically take care of him because there's an incident where he gets in trouble and she's sent to live with him at his family ranch to kind of like help him build up his like, to help him change his image and like make him a lot more lovable. So there she ends up going to his town, so that's very small town vibes, and they end up falling in love, which you can kindly guess. I loved this book. I loved everything from it. I loved the cowboys. I haven't really read much cowboy romances, and Rhett, oh my gosh, like he's a bull rider, and like some of the stuff he said, if you ride the hat you ride the cowboy, and I was just like whoa, like the tension between these two characters was just so amazing. And Summer, I feel like she's one of those characters that even though she's raised in the city, she's very down to earth, and their relationship together and like how she supports him throughout was just really cute. And seeing Rhett open up to someone else, because he's definitely that grumpy vibe, like it's definitely a grumpy versus sunshine book. I can't wait to tackle the rest of her series. I actually read another book of hers which I'll get to in a bit, but if you haven't read it, go and read it. I gave this one a 4 stars. I gave it 4 stars because I really enjoyed the plot. I really liked the storyline. I don't think it was a 5 stars because I needed a little bit more. And it's got a pink cover. Like, who doesn't love a pink cover? It's got cowboys. It's a small romance. It's grumpy sunshine. Like, oh, it was beautiful. Like, this book was beautiful. It was so cute. It was so funny. It was so romantic, and I feel like it was perfect for this season. Autumn time, winter time, I love my cozy romances. I think you can just tell how much of a romance girl I am. Books that I read are part of a series. This series follows Ren. She works in a little cafe, and in her cafe, every Friday, 3 men show up in business suits having a meeting, and they're always there. Always had an interest and a crush on all of them. One day they actually speak to her and it just falls in love instantly. So the name of this series is called The Ruthless Desires by Elira Fire Hawthorne. There's 4 books in this series, as I said. It's Blissful Masquerade. The second book is Perfect Convergence. It's Undying Resilience. And then the 4th book is Wretched Corruption. Again, reminds me of the Redwood Kings book series that I just referenced, because even though it's a romance book, it's a dark romance. I really enjoy dark romances. People don't really enjoy them that much. I never really give them 5 stars. I don't know why. I never really give them 5 stars, but I really enjoy reading them. Like, they're kind of my comfort read because I really like the drama. I feel like they're just so dramatic in these books, and they're so unserious that I actually really enjoy them, and it's like going to an alternative like world. But this book, they're all like billionaires. It also has that crime kind of aspect, mystery to it. It's not just simple as one girl fall in love with 3 guys. It's not a dark romance. I definitely don't recommend reading these books, but if you are, the series is such a good series. So these books, I actually gave a 3 stars. Actually, all of them I gave a 3 stars. The second book I gave a 3.5 because I just enjoyed it a little bit more. That book was after they kind of formed a relationship, and seeing all the drama on all the cliffhangers and all the storyline switches was so interesting. Like, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. Also, these books are so extremely fast paced. All in all, it was such a good series. So if you haven't checked out the series, I definitely recommend. Dark romance has definitely become more of my forte. I love cozy romances, but also dark romances I kind of like keep me on the edge of the seat. It gives me that little tension, and it just like, it's perfect for like October time. October time I feel like is the perfect time to read dark romances, especially because of spooky season. I usually tend to read only dark romances during that time. Usually I don't really read dark romances in the summertime or springtime. So that's my little guilty pleasure. So the next book I read this month was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book right here has been one of my anticipated reads for such a long time. Since the book came out, I've been able to avoid so many spoilers, which I was so proud of myself, but I decided that it was finally time to read it. As I said, October is spooky season. It is the season for not only dark romances, but also fantasy books. I've only recently started to get into fantasy books, but as I've started to read them, I've been loving them. So the Fourth Wing follows Violet. Violet is sent to this war college where she is going to be trained to become a rider. A rider, they're basically people that go fight in the war, kind of like soldiers, and they ride on dragons. The dragons are what they use to fight. At the beginning of the book, it is very clear that she feels she's not meant to be there. Her whole life, she's been trained to be a scribe. Scribe are people that are involved with knowledge. She likes educating herself, she likes reading, but as her mum is the general, she basically forces her to be a rider. So it starts off with her at Constituent Day, and it jumps straight into it. What I love about this book, it's straight into the action, no messing about. It was really fast paced. So in this book we meet Xaden. Xaden is kind of the enemy in this kind of situation, because in this book we hear of the rebels. So these are the people that basically rebelled against this whole system. I made a whole reading vlog around it. I did a reading only fantasy books for the week. I'm going to watch that, go and watch that to see my full reaction. I ended up giving it a 4 stars. I didn't give it higher than 4 stars because personally I couldn't feel the tension between Violet and Xaden as much as I wanted to. I really didn't like her friend Dane in this book. As soon as I met him, he reminded me of Tamlin, he reminded me of Adam, and I didn't want anything to do with him. He really got on my nerves because throughout the book he was like, no, why are you here? You're not meant for here. I can get you to be a scribe. And it's like, you have no you have no confidence in her. Even when she was winning challenges, she was becoming more strong, she was actually having confidence within herself. He was always there to tear her down. Even though I didn't feel the connection as much with Xaden, like, I loved their moments. And I think what really brought this book up to me is the last 100 pages. I feel like the only reason it wasn't a 5 stars is because in the middle I got to a point where I got a bit bored. The beginning of the book was really like gripped. The front of the beginning of the book was really tense and really like eye-catching, whereas in the middle I got a bit bored. But towards the end I really loved the relationship. When it finally got to their smut scene, I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell? Like, seeing them two together, that's when I felt the chemistry. I want to see a little bit more, and finding out this book is actually part of a series, I feel like it's going to help me. You know me, books that are part of a series, 9 out of 10 times, the first book's never my favourite, because in my head I kind of think of it as a pilot episode to what's going to happen next. It's kind of introducing you to the world, it's doing a lot of world building. Really enjoyed it. It really was fast paced. I really enjoyed it because it was quite refreshing as well. I haven't really read a book that was dragons, and the aesthetic of this book is definitely Harry Potter vibes, Divergent vibes, that type of like energy. So if you like Harry Potter, if you like Divergent, I definitely recommend buying this book. Can't wait to read the next one. Actually comes out the 7th of November, so as soon as that book comes out I can't wait to read it. So if you want to see a reading vlog on that, let me know. The way this book ended, I was just so shocked. Like, the way it ended, I was staring at the wall for like 5 minutes after, like, what on earth did I just read? But I can't wait to read the next one. So if you haven't read this book, go and read it. It is so interesting and you will be gripped throughout the whole time you're reading it. So next I read A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. This is part of the ACOTAR series that I've been reading and loving. This was actually my first kind of proper introduction to fantasy. I've only been reading fantasy for the past few months, and this book right here has crack in it. I'm not going to lie. This book right here, I have been enjoying this series so much. I've been gobbling up, I've been taking every last crumb and digesting it, because Thea and Ryzen, like, oh my gosh, they're amazing. All the characters are beautiful and amazing. Tamlin, you got to go. But even he had a bit of a redemption in this book, and seeing all the characters, seeing more of the war, I thought this book had a lot more focus on the plot, the politics was just amazing. I enjoyed the small moments. It wasn't heavily romance focused, but because we had the second book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury, which focused a lot more on their romance, I feel like this book, I really enjoyed it a lot more. I love their relationship. I gave this book a 5 stars. I'm actually probably going to give it a 6 stars because I enjoyed it so much. A Court of Mist and Fury, I gave it a 5 stars because, again, that book was amazing. This book was amazing. I can't wait to read the next one, A Court of Frost and Starlight. This book's going to end soon. This series is going to end soon. I don't believe that I enjoyed this book. This book is 700 pages long. Yes, it's 700 pages long, and I read it in 3 days. I read it in 3 days, bearing in mind I work full time. So the fact that I was able to read it in 3 days, if that doesn't tell you I enjoyed it, I don't know what will. And I didn't want to put it down. Like, I don't even want to read the next book because the series is going to end in 2 books time. I can't wait to do a reread of this book because I haven't actually annotated any of the books. And what I want to do is, when I do a reread, I want to do a full annotation. Like, now that I know the characters and I know what to expect, I want to do a full annotation. Full annotation, best thing ever. This book, the whole series, amazing. If you haven't read the series, go and read it. If you're a fantasy girly and you haven't read these books, where you been living? Under a rock. Destiny, if you're watching this, I love you as well. She's the one that recommended me to this book. She introduced me to this because she is a fantasy girly, and I forever love her for it because this book changed my world. So now that I have calmed down a bit after talking about A Court of Wings and Ruin, next we're going to delve into another fantasy. This book is Unravel Me, which is part of the Shatter Me series. It follows Juliet. She has this power. Her power is basically if she touches you, you die. Don't know what happens, but you die. And the first book, she's like locked away and she finally like escapes. So it starts off with her in this cell by herself, locked up for the past like 4 years, haven't seen a speck of daylight, and another guy ends up being brought into there. she recognises him saying, who the hell are you? And she realises that it's her old friend called Adam. Is he going to remember? Is he going to remember me? And they escape, and obviously the second book is focusing on them escaping and how they are brought together by this group of people. It's called a mega point. So they end up at this place called a mega point, which Adam is basically essentially from. And these people that are there, they all have similar abilities to her. So seeing her and her adjust to interacting with people, and I loved her development. The only thing I would say about this book is we did have a bit of like a two-step back moment, because in the first book it ended off with her saying, I'm stronger now. I've realised that my curse, the thing that I thought was a curse my whole life, is actually a gift. And this book kind of started off with her again becoming extremely not confident in herself, overthinking. I really relate to Juliet because she's an extreme overthinker. She doesn't believe in herself. She's a people pleaser. She thinks she's always hurting people. And seeing her emotions and how she was feeling was just so important. I feel like with fantasy books, you have the misconception that they're not realistic, that you can't relate to them, but all I felt is when I read fantasy books is that they're so raw and they're so interesting and relatable in a way that sometimes romance books aren't. And I feel like with fantasy books, because you're creating a world, the world can be anything you want. And with the Shatter Me series, this world again reminds me of Divergent, but this book was just so good. Juliet, I love her so much. Adam, you can just go jump off a cliff. Warner as well, like with Warner on TikTok, everyone's like he's the best book boyfriend or stuff like that, but in the books, like, he's kind of the enemy. But seeing him in this book was just amazing as well. Seeing their relationship, kind of understanding them, the tension. I felt the tension between them two. Oh my gosh, the tension was so spicy. I was like, woo! Woo! And that being said, I gave this book a 4.5. I didn't give it 5 stars because I felt like it was a little thing missing. I didn't know what it was. But apart from that, everything hit. Like, it was just amazing. It was amazing. I wish there was a little bit more romance though, a little bit more smut. But I didn't really mind that I didn't have smut because I liked seeing the growth of Juliet, and by the end of this book, I felt that it reached to a point where she's actually finally confident in herself. If you haven't read any fantasy books, go and read them. I don't know what's happening to you. And coming from me, if you're a romance girl and you're really thinking about getting into fantasy, I definitely recommend getting into it, just trying. I feel like starting off with light-hearted fantasy rather than going into deep core fantasy can also be easier, because I feel like going straight into hardcore fantasy with no romance in it is just going to be like impossible. But all in all, this book was amazing. I gave it 4.5 stars because it was so good and it was such a good addition to my October reading. You guys can tell it's probably starting to get darker now because I have my lamp on, I have no light on, but I was using the daylight, but it's going now. The 1st of November is here. No one can say anything to me about playing Christmas songs. I've already started playing Christmas songs. I might even watch a Christmas movie because who cares really? Like, who cares? Christmas is my favourite season, and if you dare tell me I can't play Christmas music, you are having a laugh. And I can't wait to decorate my room as well. Like, I've only had these decorations up for about 2 weeks and I'm already ready to get my Christmas decorations up, but I still want to buy more stuff. I have loads under my bed, but I want to buy new stuff. But anyways, let me stop talking about that because that's not relating to this book. You guys want to see what I read. So the next book that I read this month was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This book again is a fantasy book, but it's more of a fairy tale. We meet Evangeline. Evangeline has always believed in fairy tales, and she finds out that the guy she was seeing, the guy she's in love with, is getting married to her sister. She wants to stop the wedding, so she ends up going to visit the Prince of Hearts. In exchange for helping her, he sets a deal with her that she has to do 3 kisses to 3 different people of his choice. And what I like about this book is it's a very storytell feeling. It's definitely like fairy tale, like it jumps from place to place. It reminds me a bit of Ella Enchanted, like how she's like traveling to kind of like find her fairy godmother. That's kind of with her. With Evangeline, she's constantly trying to chase that happily ever after. At the beginning, I didn't really relate to the book or enjoy it as much, but seeing Jax and her relationship was so funny. From the first interaction, the first time we ever met, I was hooked, and the book really sold me the last like 200 pages. This book is only about 498 pages, but the last 200 pages really sold it for me. I ended up giving this book a 4 stars as well because I actually really enjoyed it. Like Fourth Wing, there were aspects that I did find boring, which is not why it's not a 5 stars or 4.5. In terms of in my enjoyment, I really did enjoy it. I found it interesting. I found it refreshing. What I like about Once Upon a Broken Heart is it reminds me of my childhood. I used to love fairy tales. I love Disney princesses. I love all that stuff. And seeing that as a more of an adult book was just so magical to me. This book is really magical, like that's what I would really say about it, and that it's actually part of the series as well. Reading this book was just such a nice experience. So next I read Corrupt. This book is by Penelope Douglas. Penelope Douglas did this book called Punk 57. I actually did a vlog about that ages ago, but this is again is a dark romance, part of a series called Devil's Night. It basically follows 4 friends. It has like different tropes. It has like best friend's brother, it has like enemies to lovers, and it's a dark romance because I think each of the boys wear masks or something like that. This book follows Erica. So Erica really likes this guy, Michael Christ, and she knows him because he's her best friend's brother, and basically he doesn't like her because of an incident that happened 3 years ago. So it does do like flashbacks. He kind of tries to get payback on her, but it's more of an adult, like the Redwood Kings one. This one I enjoyed it a lot more because it was adult. I gave this book a 4 stars because I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the dark romance elements to it. There was parts I didn't like because again this was a lot of a miscommunication trope to why they were hurting her or why they were trying to get revenge on her, so that's what I really didn't understand. But I loved seeing the relationship between Erica and Michael and seeing him like protective of her even when he's supposed to be getting revenge with his friends. He's always kind of like protective over her and always trying to help her, and the way it ended was just like, whoa, I can't wait to read the rest of the books. Even Damon's supposed to be like more of the enemy of the book, and seeing him in this book was just really interesting as well, and I can't wait for his book. Even though he's a very dark character, I really can't wait for his book. With dark romance, as I said before, I really enjoy them because they're just so refreshing to me. They're my little guilty pleasure. So finally, we are on to the last book that I read in October. As probably can guess, is part of the Chestnut series, which was the first book I talked about was Flawless. And the next book I read is the second book of the series, which is called Heartless. This follows Cade, which is the older brother. In the first book, he is like known as like the grumpy brother. He has a son, he's a single dad, and Willa is the best friend of Summer. He needs a babysitter, and Summer's like, well, my friend's in town, like she can take care of him, and he is grumpy. He is grumpy. Willa is a fierce, strong woman. Reminds me a lot of Jules from Twisted Hate by Anna Hugh because they're both redheads, but they both have fierce energy, which I really love. Spicy, but she's really compassionate. She's really kind, and even though she's had like a good upbringing, she has like really lovable parents. She's really relatable to Cade, and I feel like with Cade, the reason why he's grumpy, moody is because of like he's the older sibling and he's always felt the burden to take care of everyone, especially when their mum died. And seeing him with his son was just so cute. Books, I was hooked from day dot. I absolutely loved them. Daddy Cade, like Daddy Cade, that's what I'm gonna be calling him because he is the ultimate daddy. Like people were saying like when you get to his book you're gonna be obsessed, and I was obsessed. I ended up giving this book a 5 stars because I couldn't not, because I was obsessed. I read this book within a day. I read this book a day. It's not like a thick book or anything, but I read it within a day because I was so obsessed. I don't want to put it down. The tension between these two, even before they got together, was just smoking. Like I could probably touch them, but whoo, I'd be on fire. So slow burn, but when it got to the smut scenes, I was just like so steamy. Like you could feel the sexual tension oozing off them. And seeing that she was paired with Cade was actually really funny because they're 2 different people, but in the heart of them, they're the same. They had a lot of things that they could relate with each other with her. Like he needed her. But him as well, like he's daddy. Daddy Cade. That's all I've got to say. Daddy Cade, yeah? Daddy Cade, please. Daddy Cade. Love the whole thing. I love the whole family. Harvey as well, the dad. His joke about having a breeding kink to Cade was actually hilarious. He needs to have his own book because he's a single dad as well, technically, because he's a widow. And even though he's like older, I think he's probably in his 60s or something, he needs a story. But yeah, it was just such a good book, and the series, I feel like I've had such good series this year. Like the Twisted series has been on my top range, and this Elsie Silver series, the Chestnut Spring series as well, is amazing. Elsie Silver, like, your books are beautiful, they're brilliant, like, beautiful. Sarah as well, like, I love you. You recommended them to me. She was the person that I saw that was reading them, especially Alexa Ray as well. I absolutely adore Alexa Ray, and when she was reading these books and seeing her reactions was just so funny, and I was obsessed with them. So if you haven't read any of these books, go and read them. Those were all the books I read in October. I'm super proud that I was able to read that much. If you want to get any of these books, go check out my Goodreads, because they'll be all on there. If you want to see like any of my reviews, go on my Goodreads as well. That's why I post like how I'm feeling. You can see what I'm reading at the moment, and just connect with me. I want to be friends with you on Goodreads. I want to see what you're reading, see what your TBR is for the rest of the year. I know my TBR is so long, not even just my physical TBR. The one that I have on my Goodreads is impossible. Seeing my book challenge thing go high is so funny to me. Like, my goal is 100 books and I'm already on 75, which for me, I was actually shocked that I'm on 75. I don't mean to boast, but it just shows that if you can do anything, you put a mind to it. But it's also being privileged. Like, I have a privileged life that allows me to do those things and buy books, because books are expensive. But if you guys enjoyed this video, again, please like and subscribe. Please engage with me in the comments, follow my Instagram. But I love you guys so much. Thank you guys for supporting me. I don't think I would have ever done any of this stuff without you. I can't wait to see the rest of the year brings and what happens in the new year. As I always say, I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!